This is Showcase, Faculty Exhibition 8 at the Jule Museum. Here's Cait McCarthy and Jordan Young talking about the process behind their work.
The objects that you see really start to superimpose two things. One is a 3D printed version of a generic object, and that generic object is kind of repeated in 4 different ways and transformed via these 4 very different drawing projections. So it was important to us to kind of understand how the same thing changes and how you understand it differently based on the different projection, which is represented via the kind of 3D print. And then superimposed in front of that 3D print is a piece of acrylic, which we etched with a laser cutter and then put acrylic paint over so that it really starts to read as a drawing. And then together you get kind of, when you stand in front of the object, the layering of the actual kind of 3D printed projection with the more 2D version of it. And understand the kind of differences and discrepancies between the actual 3D and the kind of 2D version.
Yeah, so a lot of that also goes into how we make digital models and digital drawings versus how drawings were constructed kind of previously before digital software such as Rhino or AutoCAD or any of these software that are really common to the production of drawings now. So the models themselves try to kind of look at projecting or relating those 2 different media into one actual object.
Part of the original exhibition, we also had a series of really many different types of drawings that were developed via the single generic object, but manipulated via the different kind of projections, and it got really playful, so we also invented our own drawing types for this project. That was one of the most fun parts of it, was that we kind of learned a lot about how to actually construct via the computer these different drawing projections, some of which are not very commonly used anymore, so that you can't really default to it using a computer program like Rhino 3D, which is what we commonly use. But it really gave you the agency and the liberty to understand that you can invent your own, and like drawing really is a construct that can be like manipulated but also reinvented. So those invented drawing projections were also a part of the original exhibition.
Yeah, I think part of that too, these invented drawings, it was, so we were looking at oblique drawings and there's a cavalier projection and a cabinet projection, and the difference between the two is the depth in which you begin to draw, and the cabinet projection is 1/2 the kind of depth that you project. So we're like, okay, well that's a really odd way of starting to actually represent something. What if we actually double that and we start to stretch out the object, or what if we quarter it and we make it really, really foreshortened? So we were interested in how these conventions, which are also just kind of invented ways of representing space, can be kind of transformed, and we can invent our own as a way to reimagine or rethink these different tools.